Hello, and welcome back to my reaction to Playtest Packet 7 and the new changes to the classes like the Barbarian and Fighter and whatnot. For this video, we're going to be talking about the Fighter and the changes that they've made to that class ever since the last time they were in Playtest, I think 5. And, well, I guess let's get right into it. So this is going to be a big one for me because personally the Fighter is actually my second favorite class, I would say. Artificer is my favorite because I am still a nerd at heart, but there's just something appealing about being in a world of magic and you're the guy that's just really good with a sword, you know? And not to mention that the Fighter has one of my favorite concepts for a subclass, which is the Eldritch Knight, which we will be seeing in this playtest, so I have some high hopes. Hopefully they won't be dashed by the time I get to it, because the Eldritch Knight, it's one of those things where I love the idea, because I'm a sucker for Gish classes. I love, the sort of sword and sorcery combination, but one of the big weird sticking points with the existing Eldritch Knight, if we pull it up from the current version of the Fighter, is the level 7 ability, War Magic, which is when you use your action to cast a cantrip, not even a spell, a cantrip, you make one weapon attack as a bonus action. And first of all, it makes you use your bonus action. And but when you get it, at least you have 2 attacks from level 5, right? And then you can cast a cantrip in place of one of those attacks, so that you're getting one cantrip, 1 attack, even if you're also consuming your bonus action on top of that, which is annoying. But at least it makes sense. But then as you get to level 11, now you're replacing 2 attacks with a cantrip, and then you get 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. And then at level 16 or 20 or whenever they get their last attack, you're replacing 3 attacks with a and it's like, it feels like the ability gets worse as it goes on, and it just feels clunky that it also consumes your bonus action. My biggest hope, and I haven't read this part of the playtest yet, so we'll see how disappointed or happy I am by the end of this, but my biggest hope is that they rephrase this to be more like the Bladesinger ability of the same name. Because if you're not familiar, the Bladesinger, which is a wizard subclass, gets spell multi-attack, which is just normal multi-attack, but you can replace one of the attacks with a cantrip, which I think would fit the Fighter a lot more, given that their whole thing is getting multiple attacks. Whereas this is like, oh yeah, just screw the Fighter's normal attack progression, you're just casting a cantrip and getting a bonus action attack now, which just seems weird. And there's a few other criticisms I have towards Eldritch Knight, but we'll get into it more when we actually get to that subclass. First of all, let's look at the core class itself. So, right off the bat, everything looks pretty much the same. Second Wind is on a resource again. But if you actually look at the notes, Weapon Mastery now gets 1 more learned use of it, which is nice. I mean, it makes sense. The Fighter should be getting the most Weapon Masteries. And then Second Wind also restores a use on a short rest, apparently, which I think is important. So now Second Wind no longer just completely, it just seems so weird to shift it completely from a short rest resource to a long rest one. I think this is kind of the best of both worlds, because now, if you need to, you can use multiple Second Winds in a combat, but you can also get it back on a short rest, so that, you have the main buff throughout the day. Then there's a bunch of... We'll get into the stuff as we go. So, fighting style. You get a fighting style feat. And whatever you get at fighter level, you can swap it out. Fine. Fighting style feats have been kind of underwhelming to me in the playtest. I guess we'll get to that later in the feats section. But we'll see how that goes. Second Wind. So as a bonus action, D10 plus your fighter level. That's cool. You regain 1 use on a short rest and all uses on a long rest. I think that's a great change. Now Second Wind is actually more powerful than it was previously. And you get more total uses throughout the day, which is nice. Because now, like I said, if you're in a really powerful boss fight, you could use this like 4 turns in a row, and then you could still use it, every time you take a short rest. Then weapon mastery, you get 3 weapon masteries. You could swap them out. I still wish that they would change the way masteries work, so that you learn the mastery ability rather than applying it to a weapon. Because like right now it's you learn to master weapons, and it's just awkward. I might make a whole video on this, but you know what? Actually, let's go to the weapon mastery section of this book and see exactly what changes they've made to it, because this is going to be most relevant to the fighter anyway. So might as well put it in the fighter video. Okay, so we are looking at a later part of the book. Okay, so first of all, the ability score improvement feat, that has changed so that now it inherently says at level 19 you can increase a stat to 22. So that explains where epic boons went. I was kind of confused about that last video. So that now you can actually just take, the ability score improvement, increase your stat to 22, call it a day. But moving on to the actual weapons section. So, new type of property, revised weapon properties, the new type of property, weapon properties. Okay, so the heavy property is redesigned, the flex property is gone. You know what? That's really funny. So there was a big joke going around in one of the videos talking about weapon masteries. They mentioned that the flex mastery was supposedly the strongest mastery in the game, and basically everybody laughed them out of the building for that one, because it literally was like an average of +1 damage, whereas everything else was it was clearly everything was better. So yeah, so now things that had the flex property now have their own properties. So like longsword has sab, quarterstaff now has topple, spear has sap, warhammer has push. Okay. So yeah, it looks like everything's mostly the same. They've made some improvements. Getting rid of flex was definitely an improvement. The battle axe and the longsword are different because now the longsword has sap, battle axe has topple. Let's look at the thing. So yeah, so cleave is still the same. Once per turn, you can attack a second creature within 5 feet without adding your ability modifier. Graze lets you hit people even if, you would have missed. Nick, when you make an extra attack of the light property, you can make it as part of the attack action instead of a bonus action, which is nice. Push. Yeah, push. I mean, push is still one of my favorite ones, simply because it just gives you a really good amount of battlefield control. Being able to, like, move enemies around every time you hit, and especially on a fighter when you have so many attacks, it just gives you really strong, manipulation, which martials don't normally have. Sap, creature has disadvantage on the next attack roll, that's good. Slow, I mean, slow has always been one of the weaker ones, but at least has no prereqs, I guess. And of course it doesn't stack with itself. Topple, always one of the stronger ones. When you hit a creature, force the creature to make a con save. Was that always a con save? I don't think it was a con save before. And then they have to make they fall prone. And then Vex, of course, gives you advantage on your next attack roll. So I still have problems with weapon masteries because the system is very set in stone. There's not really a lot of room to expand upon the system. Like, the issue is, like, imagine if they wanted to add a new ability over time, like a pull mastery that lets you, like, use a weapon with reach to pull somebody towards you, right? But how are they supposed to add that ability in this current system? They can't just add it to a weapon because all the weapons already have their own masteries that are set in stone. So they need to add a new weapon in order to have the new mastery, which means now that new weapon just has to magically start showing up in games, and it just seems like such an awkward way to handle it. And not to mention, the masteries only really scale by the number of attacks you get, which means that like the fighter can use them the best because they have the most attacks, but most classes only get 2 attacks. So like the masteries don't really scale that much. So I really should make a video just talking about why I think, or what I think they should do with weapon masteries to make them really good. But for now, let's just get back to the fighter. So, fighter, weapon mastery, you learn weapon masteries, bada boom, bada bang. Action surge. So, the main nerf that they've done with action surge is that it uses you can no longer use the magic action while action surging, which I think is fine. The action surge was so often dipped for in the fighter, like so many people would take 2 levels of fighter just to get action surge, and then use it to like become the Eldritch Blast Gatling gun, that kind of thing. So excluding the magic action from action surge is, I think, fine. And of course, you can still use it once per short or long rest. And then at level 17, you can use it twice, but only once on a turn, which is fine. Tactical Mind. So this is the new one that actually gives the fighter some utility. When you fail an ability check, you can expend a use of your second wind to push yourself towards success. Rather than regaining hit points, roll 1d10 and add the number rolled to the ability check, potentially turning into a success. If the check still fails... Okay, so, there's a lot of good stuff here. 1, if the check fails, you don't spend the use of second wind, which is great. 2, this combos with the fact that second wind now recovers on a short rest, so that you always at least have 1 use of this ability, at least as long as you get your short rests in. And 3, I like that it's available so early on at level 2. If anything, the fighter is still really front-loaded, but I like that it gives the fighter something to do with ability checks outside of combat. Like, it sort of makes sense flavor-wise that they're, like, exerting themselves using second wind to, like, brute force their way through a check, kind of like how the barbarian can use their rage to just brute force, like, a stealth check somehow. At the end of the day, I think it's a good idea to have this be such a low-level ability. Give them some actual real utility. Then at level 3, subclass, level 4, feat, level 5, extra attack, also level 5, tactical shift. When you activate your second wind with a bonus action, you can move up to half your speed without... Oh! I like that. Move up to half your speed without provoking an attack of opportunity. That's really good. So now, again, especially with second wind recovering on a short rest again now, whenever you heal yourself, you also get to move and dodge or attacks of opportunities, not AoEs. That's really nice. Fighters can now just really move around the battlefield. That's really good. Now... that's kind of funny that it skips from level 5 to 9. I was confused for a second, but it makes sense because at level 6 and level 8 you get feats, and they just kind of wrap that all into the ability score improvement. So 6 and 8 is covered, then 7 is your subclass ability. So you just kind of jump from level 5 to level 9. So yeah, level 9 is when you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. If you do so, you must use the new roll. Can't use this feature again, so you finish a long rest. Okay, so this is kind of, I think, a mix between the version that they did in the last one. Let me pull up the previous fighter. So yeah, so in the previous version of the fighter, they changed Indomitable, because in the base fighter, you had the basic version was you just re-roll, and that was it. And that was bad because it didn't actually help you pass the check at all. It just let you re-roll, and I guess you just hope for the best. But like if you're bad at, say, wisdom saving throws, you're still probably going to fail the save. So it's good that they buff it so that, you add a bonus equal to your fighter level, so you're much more likely to pass it. One thing I still don't like, though, is that even if you fail the check, you still lose the ability to keep. You still lose the use of it. Whereas I like how Tactical Mind here, if you fail, the use isn't expended. I feel like Indomitable, like, you get a bonus and everything, but if you fail, it's expended, and then I guess it just sucks to suck. Like, I really wish that they would make it so that if you fail the check, you don't lose the use of it, so that you can keep using it until you at least pass. I think you get a few more uses of it now, compared to the old one. Because yeah, I think Indomitable you only got one use of it, and now you explicitly get multiple uses again. So that's better than just having the one use, but it really, in my opinion, it should not be consumed on a fail, because nothing feels worse than having an ability with an extremely limited number of uses, and then when you do use it, you just fail, and then you might as well just not have the ability. Like, and that just sucks, and it feels bad. And they should make it like Tactical Mind, where you're able to use it again if you fail. Okay, so Master of Armaments. So I believe this is mostly the same as a different ability. Yeah, because there was previously the abilities Weapon Expert and Weapon Adept, which was kind of hilarious because the first ability you get is Weapon Mastery, then you get Expert, then you get Adept, which is kind of the reverse of what you would expect the progression to be in terms of like skill levels. Like, you normally go Adept, Expert, Master. So that was just a really funny kind of naming fail. But I believe this is mostly the same, so let's look over it. So whenever you finish a long rest, you can choose any kinds of mastery weapons you're using, and replace the weapon property of each with another mastery property. The chosen kind of weapon must qualify for the new property. For example, you can replace the longsword sap with the push property. These property changes apply only for you, not for others, and the changes end. So, I mean, I still wish that fighters could get two uses of, or two properties on one attack. Maybe we'll see in the subclasses, because we do have Battle Master to look up after this. But I mean, it's nice that you can just choose what to do, but... Well, wait a minute. Actually, is this worse than the previous one? Because it's whenever you finish a long rest, you can replace the Weapon Mastery property. So yeah, so this is actually... I feel like this is worse than the last one, isn't it? Because the last one, you eventually could set it so that... Yeah, so you could give a weapon multiple properties, and then you'd be able to choose which property to use, which would be nice, because that way you didn't have to keep swapping between weapons, and you could give the longsword both, say, push and sap, and then you can choose, if I want to push for this attack or sap with this attack without having to swap weapons. But now you have to swap weapons, and you're replacing it, so you're losing access to... I don't like that. That's not good. I don't... I'm gonna make a whole video on weapon masteries later. Like, I have to at this point, to try and fully get my ideas out there, because this is just not what I'm looking for. Like... Weapon masteries feel so close to something that's really good, and they just keep missing the bullseye with it, I feel. Okay, level 11, 2 extra attacks, level 12 is a feat. Level 10 is a subclass ability, okay. So 8 attacks, masterfully stuff your opponents. If you make an attack roll and miss, you have an advantage on your next attack roll. That's kind of cool. It's simple, straightforward. It's nice to have that as a fighter ability. 14 is feat, 15 is, I believe, subclass, 16 is feet. Where's 18? Is that also subclass? Okay, 18 is also subclass. 19 is feet. And then yeah, 20 is you get your third attack. I still feel like this should not be a capstone. Fighters should get their third attack like around level 16 or so. Like cantrips scale to their fourth tier, level 16. It seems, and like you get your first attack at obviously level 1. You get your second at level 5. You get your third at level 11. And then you have to wait 10 levels before you get your fourth one. It feels like you should get your fourth one at level like 16 or so, and then give you like an actually different, unique capstone instead of your fourth attack. But regardless, okay, so let's look at Battlemaster. So Battlemaster, okay, Battlemaster. So this was one of the best subclasses in base 5e, so that, because it gave the fighter essentially what people want out of weapon masteries. So this could be interesting to actually combine these with weapon masteries. So maybe this will be really interesting. So let's take a look at it. Okay, so let's take a look here. Maneuvers, you learn 3 maneuvers. You get 4 dice. And yeah, many maneuvers and enhance an attack. You can only use 1 maneuver per attack. So that is cool though, because you can use a maneuver and a weapon mastery ability, presumably on the same attack, which I think could be cool. And then you get 2 more at level 7, 10, and 15. You can also replace one you already know. Okay, your dice are 8. You get, are D8s. You get 4 uses, short rest. This is all pretty standard. So let's actually look at the weapon masteries themselves. So let's see here. Commander's Strike was one I always liked. Place one of your attacks to direct one of your companions to strike. Can immediately use its reaction to make a strike with 1 weapon or unarmed strike. Adding superiority die. Yeah, that's cool. So let's just look at a couple of these random ones. Like Goading Attack. Whenever you hit a creature with an attack roll, spend a die. Add the die to the attack's damage roll. Must succeed on a wisdom save. So yeah, so this seems lunging attack, bonus action. Take the... Ooh, this is different. You can expend 1 superiority die and take the dash action. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line immediately before hitting, you could add to the damage roll. That's new. Just bonus action dash by spending a die. I'll take it. Menacing attack, wisdom save or be frightened. Disarming, strength saving throw, drop the weapon. Parry, damages you. You can use your reaction to spend 1 die to reduce the damage. Plus your strength, or okay, I like that it's now more versatile, because like that one was limited to just dexterity, and now you can use your strength as well to block stuff. I think that's cool. Pushing attack. So when you hit a creature, add a superiority die. If the target is larger or smaller, must succeed on a strength saving throw. So again, like this is the kind of cool idea of mixing Battlemaster maneuvers with weapon masteries, because I can imagine if you're using, say, a Warhammer with the push ability, and then you smack somebody, and you also use pushing attack, that means you can theoretically push somebody up to 25 feet away from you in a single hit, if they fail a saving throw at least. I really like that. Like, so it seems like for the most part, some of these are stronger, like lunging attack is way better, and whatnot. Commanding presence is nice because it lets you add your stuff to dice, but like this is all mostly the same with just a few buffs here or there, which is cool. But like I said, this is made way more interesting by the fact that you can also combine it with weapon masteries. Sweeping attack. When you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can spend to damage another creature. Choose another creature within 5 feet. If the original attack would hit, it takes damage equal to the number you roll on superiority die. So here's a question, actually. With sweeping attack, So let me look at the thing with weapon masteries. I need to look at the actual rule on how weapon masteries work. So give me a second to look through this real quick. Okay, so yeah, so if you look at the actual abilities for weapon masteries, they can be triggered when you hit a creature with this weapon. Like when you hit a creature with this weapon. If you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature. So, that means that abilities like sweeping attack. So sweeping attack was kind of underwhelming in 5e's, base game, because like all you did is let you hit a second creature for a relatively pitiful amount of damage compared to your normal attack. But it still is hit by the weapon. So I think, unless maybe I'm misreading a rule or something, the idea would be that you can trigger weapon masteries on that second creature. So if you're again, I'm going to use the push mastery because it's my favorite one. If you are using sweeping attack with a warhammer and you smack somebody and then you use sweeping attack and hit a second person, you can then use the push mastery on both targets to push them both away from you. That gives you a lot more power with a lot of these attacks. Like I said, combining pushing attack with pushing mastery in order to push somebody 25 feet, combining like menacing attack to frighten somebody, while also like giving them like double disadvantage, or maybe giving allies advantage against them, like knocking them prone and making them frightful. So it again, the battle master is mostly the same, but just by adding weapon masteries to the mix, you immediately become way more powerful and versatile. So you know what? I'm okay with that. Honestly, they didn't really... Battlemaster was already one of the best subclasses for martials. It gave you the most tactical options. It let you do a lot of interesting things. And just letting you do that with weapon masteries on top of that really gives you a lot of fun and interesting abilities to do. So, moving on to the Brawler. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is the brand new subclass. And this is kind of like the unarmed monk style subclass, but for fighters. So less mystical, discipline style combat, more, tavern scuffle, as they put it, and street rumbler. So, and actually this is really interesting. The 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide will include magic items that enhance unarmed strikes and improvised weapons. These will support the monk, the brawler fighter, and the College of Dance Bard, along with other characters. You know what? That really is something that was missing in 5e, and I'm glad that they specifically addressed that they'll be adding that, because that is the main problem with fighting unarmed in 5e, is that there just isn't a lot of support for it. So this way, you can actually still get the benefits of magic items while still keeping the flavor of being an unarmed combatant. Okay, so right off the bat, 1d6 plus your strength modifier. That actually makes me curious real quick. 1 second. So yeah, so looking at the monk, it's just still kind of funny to just glance back at the monk and be like, oh yeah, at level 3, the monk gets a d4 to their unarmed strikes, and now the fighter gets a d6. And then, oh wait a minute, and then if you aren't holding any weapons or a shield when you make the attack roll, the d6 becomes a d8. So actually, at level 3, an unarmed fighter could do a d8 of damage with just their fist. That's kind of funny. I like that it also scales depending on whether you're using a shield or not. So you can be shield plus fist, and you do a d6, or you could just go pure fist and do d8s. That's kind of cool. Improvised expert. You're proficient with improvised weapons. Whenever you finish a long rest, choose one weapon property from the one-handed list and one from the two-handed list. So, light or thrown, and then you get 26... Okay, or reach or thrown. And then until the end of your long rest, the one-handed choice applies to one-handed improvised weapons, and the two-handed choice applies to two-handed ones. In addition, whenever you attack with an improvised weapon, you can give it one of the following weapon masteries. depending on whether it can be wielded in one-handed or two. Slaps, or sap, slow, or vex, cleave, push, or topple. And that's whenever you attack. So this is like what I wanted, where you can have just whatever, you learn specific weapon mastery abilities, and then you can apply them to the weapons. Like, this is kind of what I've wanted. And yet it's specifically for the brawler fighter when using improvised weapons, which I think is funny. The only thing is that you can't apply weapon masteries to unarmed strikes, it looks like. It's just when you're doing improvised weapons. I mean, it gives you a reason to actually, you know, pick up a chair and beat somebody with it, I guess. You know, so your base weapons, your base fists, you know, you only you deal good damage, you know, D8's not bad for just a basic unarmed strike. Like, that's the same as a longsword, isn't it? Like, that's not nothing. Yeah, like a normal one-handed melee weapon does like a D8 of damage. So being able to do that just with your fists unarmed is pretty good. And then when you use an improvised weapon, you get to apply all these bonuses, which is cool. And then in addition, sorry, this is level 7. So you can make one unarmed strike as a bonus action. When you use the unarmed strike in this way, you must choose grapple or shove. So they changed the way unarmed strikes work in the new version. So basically, unarmed strikes, you can either deal damage with them, or you can forego the damage to get a free grapple or shove just by hitting somebody with an unarmed strike. So my first reaction when I saw you can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action, I was like, so is this just the new monk? But they are limiting it so that you cannot actually deal damage with this bonus action, and you instead grapple or shove, which I think that's good for flavor. And like I said, it makes it so that the monk at least has something over, you know, the brawler. And I also like that in addition, at the start of each of your turns, you get to deal 1d6 bludgeoning damage to one creature grappled by you. So like, it doesn't cost an action, they just take damage for being grappled by you. So they really incentivize you to just get in there and grab people, which I think is nice. Then you have dirty fighting, you have advantage against creatures you grapple, so they're really incentivizing you to just kind of get in there and grab people. And then level 15, improvised specialist, you are a master at making the ordinary deadly. Whenever you hit a creature with an improvised weapon, you can add your proficiency bonus to the damage roll, and damage die of your two-handed weapons becomes a d12. In addition, whenever you attack with an improvised weapon, you can use 2 weapon masteries from improvised expert instead of 1. Jesus. I mean, it's a level 15 ability, so like, but yeah, like, damn, that is not bad. So, level 15, you could push and topple somebody while wielding a two-handed weapon or two-handed improvised weapon that also has reach, or you can throw it, you know, you throw it like 2 feet, or not 2 feet, 2 spaces. And it does a d12 of damage, and you add your proficiency bonus to the damage roll. There's no limit on that, because normally it's like the first attack you make gets like the bonus damage. No, you just get, so like at level 15 you have like a +5 proficiency bonus, so you're dealing a d12 plus your strength plus 5 plus, you know, push and topple or whatever 2 abilities you want to do, plus you have reach, and you get to do that 3 times a turn. And then as a bonus action, you get to punch somebody and grab them. Oh, man. I like it. It's not bad. And then unarmed specialist, your unarmed strikes improved to a d8. And then it becomes a d10. So, which, again, if you look at the monk, that's what the monks get. Which I think is funny. So basically, yeah, the brawler, in my opinion, appears to basically be the non-mystical monk at this point. Like, it very clearly fills a lot of the same roles as a monk, but is more about just grabbing random stuff and just beating people with it. Like, you just grab a broom and you smack someone over the head with it. You grab a chair and it just completely beat somebody with it. And the fact that, like, again, I really feel like the ability to use two weapon mastery properties on a single attack roll, that should just be a fighter ability in general. And I'm surprised that, it isn't. Because, yeah, like, the basic weapon of master of armaments, yeah, like, they don't get any other weapon mastery abilities unless I'm missing something. So, like, it feels like that's what the fighter should get is, early on. I feel like earlier than level 9, maybe at level 5 or whatever. Like, I'm not sure where to put it exactly. They should be getting the ability to swap out weapon masteries, and it should be like the previous version, where you have the ability to have multiple on a weapon, and then you only get to apply one of them. And then the mid-level ability, like where you have this at level 9, that should just be when you make a weapon attack, you get to apply 2 weapon masteries to a single attack. That way the fighter can actually not only mold weapon masteries to their weapons, like Play-Doh, but then they can explicitly be better at using them than everyone else, without needing to be a battle master to get 2 effects on one attack. And again, it just seems weird that of all the subclasses, like, to give it to the brawler that they can apply 2 weapon masteries to a single attack. It that just seems like it would make more sense to give them that ability if that was something you could do normally, and then they're just unlocking that for improvised weapons, But, whatever. Let's move on to the champion. So again, this is the generic champion. This is the default fighter. So, improved critical, super minor ability, remarkable athletes. So, this replaces adaptable victor, moves to level 3, now grants advantage on initiative rolls and athletics checks, in addition to increasing jump distance. So hey, it's a nice way to give the fighter something to do at level 3. You get better athletics checks. That's always good. Advantage on initiative rolls is also nice. Again, getting that fighter and the barbarian to the front of the initiative so that they can act early on before, like, the casters can get off their protection spells is, I think, a good idea. In addition, the distance you can cover increases by a number of feet equal to your strength mod. That's not a lot. Having 20 strength only lets you jump an additional space. So, it's not a ton, but hey, it's a rider ability. Getting another fighting style, level 7, that's basically default. Heroic Warrior. During combat, you give yourself heroic advantage whenever you start your turn without it. I'm gonna have to look that up real quick. Okay, heroic advantage, also called inspiration. Okay, you can expend it to give yourself an advantage on a test. You decide to do so immediately after rolling the d20. You can reward heroic advantage for something that's particularly heroic or in character. So, this just lets you have it during combat all the time. So anytime. So that's pretty good, because it's kind of like the current version of Indomitable, except it's every turn. Like, every turn you can use it on an attack or on a saving throw or anything, and you just roll again. And, that's I like it. And then your attack rolls become 8 crit on an 18 to 20. That's fine. And then level 18, Defy Death. You have advantage on a death saving throw. That's right. So they at level 18, champions basically become impossible to kill, which I thought was funny. But hey, I'll take it. You have advantage on death saves, Moreover, when you roll an 18 to 20, so basically when you crit on a death save, you have the benefit of rolling a 20. And then Heroic Rally, at the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points. Oh, this is actually a buff, I think. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your con. Oh no, if you have no more than half your total hit points remaining. So yeah, so you can't go back up to full, but it's hard to get you below half. And then that, of course, combines with Defy Death, because now you're so much more likely to come back up whenever you make a death save. And on top of that, at the start of your turn, you're going to start immediately healing again. So, the champion, it's still the most generic fighter and the least interesting fighter. The brawler gets all kinds of insane stuff with improvised weapons. The battle master gets all kinds of cool maneuvers, and the Eldritch Knight, which we'll get to in a minute, has spellcasting. The champion is still definitely the most boring, but I do like that they basically become unkillable at high levels. Again, keep in mind that most games only go up to level 10 to 12. Most games aren't ever going to see these kinds of capstone abilities, which is a problem that I think needs to be more addressed. So like when you just look at level 10 and under, it's still pretty underwhelming. The level 10 ability is pretty good, but that's still pretty high. And other than that, like you get, advantage on athletics and initiative, which is cool. And then you get another fighting style, which is really minor. So it's like the champion is still pretty boring in my opinion, but it's meant to basically be the boring option, so whatever. Now, Eldritch Knight, this is the big one. Like I said, big hope is that the level 7 War Magic ability is actually good. So, let's take a look at this. Okay, so, spellcasting. Cantrips, you get cantrips, standard 1/3 caster. You get 2 cantrips. Whenever you gain a fighter level, you replace one of the features cantrips with another cantrip of your choice. Whenever you reach level 10, you gain a third one. So you get very few cantrips, but you also get more feats. So like you can take the Magic Initiate feat. Not to mention, keep in mind, everybody gets a feat at level 1 now, which is good because it lets you differentiate your build a lot more. And one of the feats you can take at level 1 is Magic Initiate, so that you can learn additional spells. Like, let me pull that up real quick to see if they've changed it. Okay, never mind. It does not seem that any kind of adjustment to Magic Initiate is in this book, so I have to assume it's still like it was previously, which is still pretty good. Because Magic Initiate now lets you gain a spell from any spell list, but it lets you choose what spellcasting ability you want to use. So like you can gain like a healing spell but use intelligence with it. At least assuming it still works like that, that means that you could make up for the lack of cantrips and stuff by taking that feat and still be pretty good off with it, so we'll see. The other big thing with Eldritch Knight is that they put a big arbitrary limit on... Yeah, so 2 of which must be from Abjuration and Evocation. Now, let me pull up the old Eldritch Knight. So, Eldritch Knight, previously, each of these spells must be Evocation or Abjuration, whereas now 2 of the spells must be Abjuration and Evocation. But the third one you have a little bit more free choice on. That's nice. You get a little bit more free choice. The number of spells on your list increases as you gain fighter levels, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, spell slots, as usual. And you get intelligence. Okay, War Bond. So this is Bonded Weapon. So, Bonded Weapon in the base Eldritch Knight is kind of super minor and underwhelming. There's not a lot you can actually do with your Bonded Weapon. So let's see what they change here. You bond during a short rest. You cannot be disarmed. If it is on the same place of plane, you can summon it as a bonus action. That's the same as normal. You can have up to 2 if you attempt to bond with a third. Okay, so that seems to be basically the same. One thing that I wish they would do is make it so that you can use your bonded weapon as a spell focus for your Eldritch Knight spells, because that way you can still cast with the weapon in your hand. Because a big awkward thing with Eldritch Knight is that you need the War Mage feat or Warcaster feat in order to be able to have like a sword and board and then still cast spells with it. But yeah, whatever. At least it's they didn't make it worse as far as I can tell. Okay, War Magic. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of the attacks with the casting of one of your... Oh my god, yes! Oh, this is the big change that I've been wanting. Is they finally listened. They made the main change that I've wanted. You can replace one of the attacks with the casting of a cantrip. Oh, I love it. That's good. I like it. Yeah, like, it's really not that big a deal. I'm kind of making it a way bigger deal than it is, but it's so much nicer than the old War Magic ability. The old War Magic, like I said, it feels like it gets worse as you level. And I know, like, some people have done math, and it's like, statistically, it's technically not that bad. But it just feels weird that as a fighter whose whole thing is getting 3 and eventually 4 attacks, that you instead just don't get more attacks as you level. Whereas now, you still get to have more attacks, and you get to still cast cantrips while attacking. It's so much more flavorful and interesting. And plus, it also makes non-combat cantrips more viable, in my opinion. So yeah, there's so many ways that you could use this ability with various cantrips, especially if you spend a fee to learn cantrips you might not normally have access to. And, like, obviously the most basic version of this is like, oh, I'm going to cast Firebolt and just deal more damage. Or maybe since you're talking about melee, you go with, like, Shocking Grasp, and, you know, you get advantage and you get to deal a bunch of damage in addition to your normal attack progression. But what I think makes this ability more interesting is comboing it with non-combat applicable cantrips most of the time. Like, Blade Ward, it's a nice cantrip if you don't plan on dealing damage anyways, because it just gives you resistance to physical damage. But now, a level 7 Eldritch Knight can cast Blade Ward and still attack twice as part of their main action. You could also do things like, say, use Minor Illusion, and do things like use an illusion to distract an enemy, and then maybe your DM will give you advantage. Because, like, imagine, you know, you make the sound of a lion roaring behind your opponent. And now, like, you can do that in place of one of your attacks to get advantage on the rest of your attacks. Like, that would be a really cool way to use that ability. Even Mold Earth, one of my most favorite out-of-combat cantrips, you know, it only moves a cube of earth to, you know, adjust, and, you know, you can use that to, like, build rudimentary structures and walls or dig a trench. But, like, in combat, now that it's not taking up my entire action, I could use that in combo with my attacks to be like, oh, I'm going to, like, raise myself up 5 feet so that I can then reach somebody who's, like, flying above me. Or maybe I'm going to use it to create cover for one of my allies. Like, oh, my rogue needs a place to hide. Well, now we'll create a block of Mold Earth, and now they can hide behind that 5-foot cube of earth while I still get to attack for my turn. You know, and of course, like, you could still use, like, damaging spells, like Sword Burst, or, you know, hell, Lightning Lure would be a really good one. Because Lightning Lure, you can use it to pull people towards you, and then you can combo that with weapon attacks. And of course, you can pull out the classic, like, Booming Blade, Green Flame Blade, and honestly, I hope they make more cantrips like that, just because it would combo well with the class. Anyways, I should probably move on from this ability, just because, like, you know, it's good. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But yeah, like, that is the biggest positive change, in my opinion, that one D&D has done to date. Like, that's what I wanted right there. That is the biggest thing that I wanted. Now, if they could just make weapon masteries actually fun. Okay, so Eldritch Strike. You learn how to make your weapon strikes undercut a creature's ability to withstand your spells. When you hit a creature with an attack, the creature has disadvantage on saving throws. So, that combo is way better with War Magic now. Because again, the way that Eldritch Strike worked previously is when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, the creature has disadvantage against the next saving throw, right? But the problem is that the way War Magic worked is you had to first attack with a cantrip, then you could make a weapon attack. So if you'd used War Magic, then Eldritch Strike would only trigger on your next turn. Whereas now, Eldritch Strike could be used like on your first attack, you attack, now it has disadvantage on saving throws. Then you pull out a spell like Sword Burst or Poison Spray or something that calls for a saving throw, and then you could use that in the same turn to be able to have a greater chance of affecting the person you want to affect with it. Like, this is just, like, War Magic being better makes this ability better, which I think is great. I still kind of wish this was something more interesting and flavorful, but it at least is better with War Magic being better. Then you have Arcane Charge, which is when you action surge, you can teleport, which is whatever. And then Improved War Magic, when you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace 2 of the attacks with the casting of one of your wizard spells that has a casting time of an action. That is interesting, because that means that now... So this does not replace War Magic. So now, you could... So, you know, level 20, you have 4 attacks. And... So I'm going to assume they mean once per turn. Because I was about to say, I was like, wait, does that mean you could cast 2 spells? But, so I'm going to assume they mean once per turn. And... Or actually, no, it's once per attack action, rather. So, like, you could make 2 attacks and cast a spell. Or, you could make an attack, cast a cantrip, and cast a spell, which I think would be interesting. But, something else that I just realized is important to recognize. Action Surge exists, right? And Action Surge, you make the attack action. Now, you can't make the magic action, but this isn't the magic action, this is the attack action. So, with War Magic, you can attack, you know, say you're level 11. You attack, cantrip, attack again, Action Surge, and then you can do it all over again. Attack, second cantrip, attack again. And then, keep in mind, on top of that, you're applying weapon masteries to those attacks. So you're doing things like you're pushing people, you cast a cantrip, you make another attack, you topple them, you action surge, you sap them, you make another cantrip attack, you then, what's another, vex? You vex them? Like, you could do so many different things by combining War Magic with Action Surge, with weapon masteries, with cantrips of your choice. This is so much better of a way to design Eldritch Knight. Like, oh my god, this might actually finally be closer to what I've wanted Eldritch Knight to be for so long. Like, this actually feels like a Gish class. Like, I still kind of wish that you got the weapon bond became a focus, so you don't have to worry about the weirdness of, like, trying to deal with somatic components while wielding weapons, but I'll take it. I like having, you know, War Magic and, you know, being able to deal... Oh my, it's so much better. Okay. So yeah, so that's it for the fighter. What are my thoughts on the fighter? So, there's a lot of good. Obviously, I really, really, really like the new Eldritch Knight. Eldritch Knight is finally good. They made Eldritch Knight good. They also made it less restrictive, which I love. Let's see here. Champion, still boring, but Champion's always going to be boring. Brawler, I mean, on one hand, it feels funny that it feels like it does so many things that the monk should be able to do, but better. On the other hand, it kind of gives me some small hope for the monk, because if they're going to give a fighter subclass all of these monk-like abilities, then that means that they should probably give the monk a lot more actual like oomph to their abilities. Like that they should use the brawler as an excuse to be like, okay, this is what a non-monk unarmed fighter can do. So the monk needs to be a better, stronger version of this. So hopefully that means the monk will be made good. And then of course finally with the battle master, they didn't have to change anything, but I mean, why fix what's not broke? And if anything, it's way more powerful just by virtue of being able to combo with weapon mastery, which I think is fun. Other than that, for the actual base fighter, I think that it's nice that they added Tactical Mind at such an early level. Indomitable is better. I like that short rests recover a use of Second Wind, which is a lot better. Um, and I still wish that they had better flexibility with weapon masteries. I think it would be a lot better if they went back to the previous version where you could apply multiple to a weapon and then choose on each attack which you use, because that would further combo even better with things like War Magic and the Battle Master. So I think that they should change this to be more like the Playstest 5 weapon adapt feature. I think this was a better version of that idea, in my opinion at least. But other than that, and Indomitable. Yeah, I still think Indomitable should not consume a use when you fail. Like that's just a feel bad mechanic, and I don't think we need to be giving the fighter that many feel bad mechanics. But yeah, I think that the fighter, honestly, there's again still room for improvement. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but definitely an improvement in my opinion. It definitely it makes things better. It's way better than the current version. Weapon masteries are still better. They have a little bit more utility, not a ton, but it's fine. I'm not when I talk about how like casters have so much more utility, I'm not saying that like a fighter needs to have as much utility as a caster, but having just that little bit of extra utility with Tactical Mind, I think, is good. And of course, Tactical Shift, Indomitable, like all that's good stuff. So yeah, overall, fighter pretty good. I think that there's still only a little bit more iterations that I think need to be done, and then I would personally be happy with it. I still wish the weapon mastery system was reworked to be something better, but hey, I will take it. And I think that will do it for the fighter. So I may or may not do videos on the rest of the classes. My biggest interest is on the martial classes. I may read through these off camera and then kind of just do a quick summary of my thoughts on the Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard, just to see what they've done with them. You know, see if there's anything interesting that they've done. Any kind of changes to spells could be interesting. We'll see. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time when we talk about the rest of the classes in the book.